My God, the courtroom was practically buzzing with electricity the second the bailiff announced her name. Yep. Nicki Minaj, the queen herself. The door creaked open and there she was, walking in like a storm, in heels, completely composed, but with a look that said she was about to drop bombs. Everyone went dead silent. The tension was tangible. There were no cameras inside. Court rules, but honey, the energy in that room, like a thundercloud waiting to burst. Journalists were scribbling, people were holding their breath outside. Diddy's fans and haters were practically tearing each other apart for a glimpse. And when Nicki spoke, her voice didn't shake, not even a little. She talked about this conversation one she overheard at home. Her husband, Kenneth had called her late one night after what he called a meeting. But it wasn't your average meeting. It wasn't in some conference room. No, ma'am. It was in a secret club, like something out of a gangster movie. And then Nicki dropped the first name Diddy, or Beans, as he's referred to legally. Her husband said he was working some kind of backdoor strategy, pulling in favors, whispering to old law enforcement buddies. Nicki thought he was being dramatic, but then he started rattling off actual names and dates. Her whole world tilted. The lawyers in the room panicked. The prosecution leaned in. Defense lawyers were suddenly scribbling notes like their lives depended on it. You could see it in their faces. This wasn't just dramatic. This was dangerous.
Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon. That way you'll never miss any new coming videos like this. Now let's get back to it. Nicki paused.
Nicki took a deep breath. Everyone leaned forward. You could hear the catch in her throat as she delivered the next nuclear detail. It happened at a charity gala at Diddy's lavish Los Angeles estate. You know, the type that's all glitz on the outside but secrets on the inside. Petty had slipped away from the fancy crowd during the event and came back with this look. Dead serious. He told Nicki he had a prosecutor he could nudge if things got sticky. That's when Nicki realized this wasn't about loyalty anymore. It was about dirty influence. The stakes weren't reputations, they were freedom. The courtroom gasped. The judge slammed his gavel, calling for a recess. The press scribbled so fast it sounded like hell. Nicki sat back, face unreadable, but everyone knew her words had just wrecked Diddy's defense. When the break ended, the judge dropped the hammer. Nicki's testimony would stand. Why? Because it was directly tied to potential witness tampering. Y'all, it wasn't just scandal now, it was criminal territory. Nicki stepped down. Flashbulbs later would claim she looked emotionless, but those who were there, they felt the shift. Day 20 of this trial had just exploded into chaos. Back in session, the prosecutor didn't waste a second. He stood up, adjusted his jacket, and zeroed in. Ms. Minaj, he asked coolly, you said your husband mentioned specific law enforcement contacts. Can you give us those names? Nicki nodded, ice in her veins. Lieutenant Garcia from LA Metro Division, and a retired detective named Marcus Reynolds. He left the force after some misconduct issues. Boom. You could practically hear defense lawyers choking on their bottled water. Then came the knockout. The prosecutor asked, and what was his plan to nudge them? Nicki didn't blink. He said he'd meet casually, coffee, lunch, pretend it was just catching up. But the goal? To remind them of old favors and get them to talk to their colleagues on Combs' case. The entire courtroom was shook. That's not just shady, that's textbook corruption. Judges scribbled, defense teams looked like they were falling apart. And then Nicki said it, yes, he met Garcia at a coffee shop. A week after the gala, I found the emails on his phone. The subject line? Contacts for Diddy defense. Hey, horse. The courtroom literally erupted. One of the defense lawyers leapt out of his chair shouting, objection! The judge called order again, and it got worse. The email was ruled admissible. The jury read it. Lieutenant Garcia, I hope you recall our work together. If there is any way you could provide a word on my friend's behalf. Friend? Diddy? This wasn't subtle anymore. The prosecution was smiling now, like wolves. The defense lawyer tried to save it. He asked, Nicki, are you saying your husband was conspiring to interfere in a criminal case? Nicki didn't flinch. Yes, that's exactly why I'm testifying. Then the prosecutor pulled out a new card. Phone logs, timestamps matching Nicki's claims, call links that screamed strategy, not small talk. The jury was riveted. The room felt frozen. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, a former assistant to Lieutenant Garcia walked in, eyes down, voice trembling. She testified that 3 days after the estate gala, she found emails in Garcia's inbox labeled Diddy defense contacts. They weren't part of any official investigation. The sender, Kenneth Petty. She even printed the emails and showed them in court. Garcia thanked Petty and promised to keep an eye on court schedules. Not hearsay, not gossip, receipts. The courtroom gasped. Defense lawyers objected, but the judge said, nope, it's real, it's relevant. Then came the darkest twist yet. The assistant said Garcia had forwarded those emails to his personal email, not the department. Red Flag City. When she reported it to Internal Affairs, surprise, some of the emails had been deleted by the time they checked. Y'all, deleted emails. Internal Affairs, this was spiraling. Defense tried to discredit her, claimed she had resentment from being reassigned, but she wasn't shaken. She said, I made copies. This mattered. I'm here because justice matters. And the jury, you could see the change in their eyes. They weren't just watching anymore. They were judging. And then the digital forensics expert walked in. Baby, if you thought things were wild before, this was the equivalent of dropping a bomb on the defense table. She had Petty's phone and laptop, and what did she find? Deleted messages, emails, notes, drafts. One draft? Created minutes after the gala meeting. It was titled Diddy Strategy X. Inside it, new outline approach for influencing pending case. Utilize personal favors, reference past services, maintain discretion. The audacity, and if that wasn't enough, the digital expert confirmed this doc was uploaded to a cloud tied to Diddy's legal team, accessed within hours by an IP from a Manhattan law office, mic drop. Defense tried to say it was a coincidence that maybe Petty was just brainstorming. But baby, this wasn't a high school essay. There were chat logs from a deleted app, code names, secret meeting times. One said, LG at 3 p.m., use coffee code blue sky. Keep HR out. That wasn't innocent. That was organized obstruction. The expert was clear. This was calculated. This was covert. This was intentional. The courtroom was silent, every single person digesting the horror. Then the final witness walked in, a longtime personal assistant to Diddy. Ooh, yes, someone who had seen it all. She confirmed Diddy had private, off-the-record meetings labeled with names like Project Sunrise and Blue Moon. Total spy. She said that days after Petty's meeting with Garcia, Diddy and Petty met again, in secret, at night, in Diddy's home study. She cleaned the room the next morning, and what did she find? A printed copy of the strategy draft the digital expert showed in court, with Diddy's initials. It had bullet points like place influencers in DA office and use charity donations to leverage access. She turned it in. She tried to raise concerns. She was told to stay quiet, and now she was done staying silent. She turned over the draft and a note she'd sent to internal counsel. Found clandestine draft, potential legal risk. The jury was stunned. The prosecution rested their case. But the defense? Oh, they weren't going down without a fight. The defense attorney stood up slowly, adjusting his tie like it was the only thing holding his composure together. He knew they were in deep, but he tried to regain control. He faced the jury with this calm, measured voice, like a therapist trying to talk someone off a ledge. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, you've heard dramatic claims, emails, hidden meetings, deleted chats. But let's not forget, this is all just context, not convictions. He paused. The room was still, waiting for him to spin this storm. Sean Combs is a public figure. Everything he does is magnified. Everything he says gets twisted. You've seen drafts that were never sent, meetings that were never recorded. Speculation isn't a substitute for proof. He stepped closer to the jury, slowly, deliberately. Think about it. Using alternate messaging apps? It's not a crime. It's normal. People protect their privacy. That doesn't mean there was a secret plot to tamper with justice. Then he aimed at the testimonies. Ms. Minaj may be sincere, but sincerity doesn't equal accuracy. Could she have misunderstood her husband's intentions? Was he boasting, exaggerating? Could it have been bravado, not a conspiracy? And the assistant? She kept her job. She had access. Couldn't her interpretation of that document be clouded by office politics or fear of job loss? He reached into a binder and waved it in front of the jurors. And digital evidence? Metadata can be tampered with. Cloud folders accessed from Manhattan. That could be anyone. A bot, a misrouted ping, even a curious intern. He was grasping, but it was working. At least enough to put some doubt in the air. And above all, he said, voice lowering, there is no direct evidence that Mr. Combs ever told anyone to break the law. No phone call, no recording, no signed memo. He let that hang. If you feel even the smallest twinge of doubt, you must vote to acquit. He sat down. The jury looked tense, conflicted. The courtroom was in a collective chokehold. And just as things settled, a court officer rushed over and handed the prosecutor a sealed envelope. Heads turned. Everyone leaned forward. The judge opened it, eyes narrowing as he scanned. Inside, a bombshell affidavit. A retired prosecutor had just come forward, swearing under oath that Kenneth had reached out to him before the trial. But wait, this wasn't what you think. The prosecutor wasn't bribed. He wasn't promised anything. Petty apparently contacted him to ask how to legally support Diddy's defense without crossing any lines. It was damage control, not manipulation. The courtroom exploded. This could blow a huge hole in the prosecution story. The prosecutor asked for a recess. The defense sat there, barely containing their glee. If this affidavit held up, it could mean the difference between conspiracy and concerned husbands. The judge allowed the break. The jurors left the room, but their faces said it all. Things had shifted again. And when they came back, oh honey, it got even messier. A legal aide took the stand, visibly shaken, clutching her notes. The prosecutor asked if any deposition stood out. She nodded, yes, one, from a former employee of Diddy's label, alleging sexual misconduct. The room froze. She read, "He placed his hand on my back, led me into a room, and assaulted me. HR told me to stay silent for the company's reputation." The defense exploded. Objection, but the judge? Overruled. Relevant to pattern and character, he said coldly, and just like that, the stakes exploded again. "You've seen manipulation of prosecutors," the prosecutor said. "Now you see the silencing of victims. Is this a coincidence or a cover-up?" The aide added she turned over the affidavit days ago. The defense tried to shake her. It didn't work. The damage was done. Then came the closing remarks. The prosecutor stepped up, crisp and deadly. "We've shown you secret meetings, code names, deleted messages, and now hidden abuse claims. If this isn't manipulation, what is?" He ended with a dagger. "No one is above the law, not even the rich and powerful." The defense tried to counter. "No hard proof. Combaine's ordered any of this. If you feel any doubt, vote to acquit." The judge gave final instructions. No proof, no conviction. The jury was excused. Outside, a media storm. Inside, headlines already hit. Day 20, Bombshell, Nicki Minaj testifies, abuse allegations rock Diddy trial. And the jury? They walked out stone-faced. But the weight on their shoulders? Unmistakable. Tomorrow could change everything.